Close your eyes for just a second. Think about something you were absolutely certain would make you happy. Maybe it was a relationship, a job, a house, a version of yourself you were working toward. You finally got it, and for a while it felt like everything, like this was the answer. And then slowly it changed, or you changed, or life just moved on the way it always does. And you were left wondering, why doesn't anything ever stay? That question has haunted human beings for thousands of years. But over 2,500 years ago, a man sat beneath a fig tree in northern India, and he didn't run from that question. He sat with it. He breathed through it. And on the other side of that stillness, he found something that would change the world forever. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, and what he discovered wasn't a religion exactly. It wasn't a set of rules or commandments handed down from the sky. It was an observation, a deeply honest, almost uncomfortably clear observation about the nature of reality. Nothing lasts forever. And from that one truth, everything else follows. Welcome. Today, we're going deep into one of the most profound and misunderstood ideas in human history. We're going to talk about impermanence, what it actually means, why most of us spend our entire lives fighting it, and what the Buddha said we should do instead. This isn't just philosophy. This is something that can genuinely change the way you experience your life, starting today. Let's begin. Part 1. The river that never steps twice. There's a famous line from the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus. He said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." Think about that. The river looks the same, it has the same name, it's in the same place on the map, but the water you touched a moment ago has already flowed downstream. New water has taken its place. The riverbed shifts, the banks erode, the temperature changes with the season. The river is never the same river. And neither are you. The cells in your body are constantly dying and regenerating. The thoughts in your mind appear and dissolve in seconds. The person you were 10 years ago held different beliefs, different fears, different dreams. If you met that version of yourself today, you might not even recognize them. This is what Buddhism calls anicca, impermanence. It is considered one of the 3 fundamental marks of existence, meaning it is not a perspective or an opinion. It is simply the way things are. The Buddha taught that every conditioned thing, every object, every relationship, every feeling, every thought, every moment of joy or suffering arises, exists for a time and passes away. Flowers bloom and wither. Friendships deepen and sometimes fade. Empires rise and crumble into dust. Stars burn for billions of years and then collapse. Even the mountains, which seem so permanent and unmovable, are slowly, invisibly being worn down by wind and rain. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is exempt from this law. And here is where it gets interesting, because when we hear this, most of us feel a kind of resistance, a tightening in the chest, a quiet yes, but. Because intuitively we don't want this to be true. We want the good things to stay. We want love to last, joy to remain, beauty to never fade, the people we love to never leave us. And Buddhism doesn't tell you that this feeling is wrong. It tells you something far more interesting. That desire itself, the clinging, the grasping, the desperate need for things to stay the same, is the source of almost all human suffering. Part 2. The second arrow. There's a teaching in Buddhism called the parable of the 2 arrows. Imagine you're walking through a forest and suddenly an arrow strikes you. It's painful. You didn't ask for it. It came out of nowhere. That is the first arrow, the unavoidable pain of life. Loss, illness, failure, disappointment, things ending. These things happen to everyone. They are part of being alive. But then in the moment after the arrow strikes, your mind starts doing something. It starts asking, why did this happen to me? This isn't fair. Things were supposed to be different. I should have done something to prevent this. How will I ever recover from this? That is the second arrow, and you shoot it yourself. The first arrow you couldn't always avoid, But the second arrow, the suffering we create by resisting reality, by demanding that things be other than they are, by wishing the impermanent were permanent, that is optional. The Buddha was extraordinarily clear about this. He did not say life has no pain. He said that suffering, that deeper, grinding, existential anguish, comes from our relationship with pain, not from pain itself. When something we love ends, there is natural grief. That is human. That is healthy. But when we spend years fighting the reality that it ended, when we refuse to accept that it could ever end, when we build our entire sense of self around something that was always, by its very nature, going to change, that is where the suffering multiplies. Most of us are walking around with dozens of second arrows in us. Old heartbreaks we haven't forgiven. Versions of our life we're still mourning. People who disappointed us we're still arguing with in our heads. Futures that didn't materialize that we're still grieving. And Buddhism asks, very gently, what if you put down the bow? Part 3, the sandcastle and the tide. Here's a question. Have you ever watched a child build a sandcastle? They work so hard on it. They pour water into the walls to make them sturdy. They dig moats. They decorate with shells and pebbles, and their whole face lights up with this fierce pride of creation. And then the tide comes in. Some children cry. Some get angry. Some want to immediately build another one, even bigger, even better, as if they can somehow outrun the water. But occasionally, you see a child who watches the wave take the castle and just smiles. Not a forced smile, a genuine one, like they understood something in that moment that most adults spend decades trying to learn. The joy wasn't diminished because the castle washed away. The joy was in the building. The value was in the moment of creation, in the concentration, in the love poured into something beautiful, not in the castle's permanence. This is what the Buddhist tradition calls non-attachment, and it is perhaps the most misunderstood teaching in all of Eastern philosophy. Non-attachment does not mean not caring. It does not mean you float through life emotionally numb, indifferent to beauty, never falling in love, never investing in anything. It means you love fiercely and hold loosely. It means you show up completely for the moment you're in, without your fist clenched so tight around it that you can't feel it. It means you give yourself fully to life, knowing full well that life is temporary, and finding that knowledge to be freeing rather than devastating. Think about that. If everything is impermanent, then every single moment is unrepeatable. This conversation you're watching right now, this exact configuration of your life, with these exact people around you, at this exact stage of your journey, it will never exist again. That's not a reason to despair. That's a reason to pay attention. Part 4, the burning house. There is a famous parable in Buddhist scripture, the burning house. A man comes home to find his house on fire. His children are inside playing. They don't understand the danger. They don't want to leave their toys, their games, their familiar world. So the father does something clever. He calls out to them, "Come outside, I have wonderful gifts for you, come and see." And the children rush out. They are saved. The gifts in the story represent the teachings, the wisdom that draws us toward freedom before we even fully understand why we need it. The burning house is the world of attachment and impermanence, a world where we cling to things that are already in the process of changing, already burning, already passing. The Buddha was not trying to make life seem bleak or meaningless. Quite the opposite. He was trying to show us that there is a way to live inside impermanence, not with terror, but with grace. Not with white-knuckled resistance, but with open-handed participation. And that way begins with the most radical act most of us will ever undertake, accepting reality as it is. Not as we wish it were, not as it was, not as it might be, but as it is. Part 5, so what actually matters? Here is where we get to the heart of the question in our title. If nothing lasts forever, if every achievement fades, every relationship changes, every version of yourself evolves, every joy eventually transforms, then what is the point? What should we actually spend our time, energy, and love on? Buddhism offers something very specific here, and it's not what most people expect. It doesn't say, nothing matters because nothing lasts. It says, everything matters more because nothing lasts. The very impermanence that we fear is the same impermanence that makes love meaningful. Think about it. If the people you loved were going to be with you forever in exactly the same form, you would never feel that aching tenderness that comes from knowing time with them is precious. You would never feel moved to say the thing you keep meaning to say. You would never choose the dinner table over the screen, the phone call over the text, the presence over the convenience. It is precisely because things end that we are called to be awake inside them. So what does Buddhism say actually matters? The quality of your attention, not the quantity of your experiences, but how deeply you inhabit them. One meal eaten in complete mindfulness is more nourishing than 100 eaten while scrolling a phone. Your relationship with your own mind. The one constant in your life is awareness itself, the capacity to observe your experience. Cultivating that awareness, learning to meet your thoughts with curiosity rather than reaction, is the work that pays dividends in every single domain of life. Compassion, because everyone around you is navigating the same storm of impermanence. Everyone you meet is carrying losses, managing uncertainty, trying to hold on to things that are slipping through their fingers. When you truly understand this, something opens in you. You become less hard on others and less hard on yourself. Presence, this moment, this one right now, is the only one that actually exists. The past is a memory. The future is a projection. This moment here is the only place life is actually happening, and most of us spend almost none of our time in it. Part 6, the practice, not the concept. Now here's something important that Buddhism would want me to say clearly. Understanding impermanence as an idea is not the same as understanding it as a lived experience. You can nod along to everything we've discussed today and feel like, yes, that makes sense, I get it. And then tomorrow your boss criticizes your work and you spiral. Your partner says something hurtful and you're carrying it 3 days later. Your plans fall through and you feel like your world is ending. That's not because you're weak. That's because the mind needs practice, not just information. This is why Buddhism is fundamentally a practice tradition. It's not a belief system you sign up for and then carry like a membership card. It is a daily, moment-by-moment training of the mind. Meditation is the core tool, and when people hear that word they sometimes picture incense and robes and hours of stillness. But at its foundation, meditation is simply this. You sit, you breathe, and you practice returning your attention to the present moment every time it wanders. That's it, that's the whole thing. And what makes it so difficult is that the mind constantly wanders. Into the past, into the future, into judgments about yourself and others, into plans and worries and fantasies. And every time you notice that it's wandered, every single time, and you gently, without judgment, bring it back to the breath, you are exercising the single most important mental capacity you possess. The ability to return. Because life will always carry you away. Grief will carry you into the past. Anxiety will carry you into the future. Anger will carry you into stories about how things should be different. And the practice of meditation is the practice of returning again and again and again to what is actually here. Part 7, the gift in the wound. I want to tell you something that might be unexpected. The Buddhist understanding of impermanence is not a teaching about loss. It is, in the deepest sense, a teaching about freedom. Because here is what happens when you stop fighting impermanence. When you stop clinging to the idea that things have to stay a certain way for you to be okay. When you release, even a little, the grip that fear has on your experience. You become available to life in a way you never were before. You start noticing things. The way light falls through a window in the late afternoon. The sound of a friend's laugh, really hearing it, not just registering it. The way a difficult conversation can shift into something honest and vulnerable if you just stay present long enough. You stop waiting for your real life to begin and start recognizing that this right here, with all its mess and beauty and uncertainty, this is it. This is the life. This is the only one you have. And somehow, that realization, the one that seems like it should be terrifying, turns out to be the most quietly liberating thing in the world. The Japanese have a concept for this, mono no aware. It translates roughly as the bittersweet awareness of impermanence. There is a kind of beauty, the Japanese tradition says, in things precisely because they are fleeting. Cherry blossoms are beloved not despite the fact that they last only a week or two, but because of it. Their brevity is not a flaw, it is the entire point. What would it mean to live your life with that kind of awareness? Outro, the only moment that exists. So let's come back to the question we started with. Nothing lasts forever, so what actually matters? Here is what over 2,500 years of Buddhist wisdom, refined across countless generations of monks and teachers and ordinary people who simply decided to pay attention, has to say. What matters is not the destination. It is not the accumulation. It is not the legacy, the achievement, the recognition, or the permanence of anything you build. What matters is the depth of your presence in this moment, the honesty of your love, the quality of your attention, the willingness to be here fully for whatever this moment contains, even when what it contains is difficult. What matters is that you showed up, not perfectly, not permanently, just honestly. The river keeps flowing, the cherry blossoms keep falling, the sandcastles keep meeting the tide. And inside all of that beautiful, heartbreaking, irreversible movement, there is life, real life, the only life there is. Don't miss it. If this video made you think differently about something, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper into Buddhist philosophy, mindfulness, and the kind of wisdom that actually changes how you live, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from. See you in the next one.